Welcome to Dad Talk Today. My name is Eric Carroll, and we have an amazing show lined up for you. We are fighting for fathers all across the United States and all across the world where you can be glad to be dad. Stick around, guys. Dad Talk Today is about to begin. Hey guys, Eric Carroll with Dad Talk Today, and wanted to take a second to introduce you to one of my sponsors. Check this out. Hey Eric, how are y'all doing? Mike Lindell here from My Pillow. I really love Dad Talk Today and everything you're doing, and wanted to support. Mike, cut it out, man. Okay, it's cut out. But he really does support us, guys. And My Pillow is now a sponsor. And you know what? We're passing the savings on to you just for being a viewer of Dad Talk. If you go to mypillow.com and put in coupon code Dad Talk, no spaces, DADTALK, man, if you don't have a My Pillow, you're missing one of the best night's sleep you're ever going to get. They have pillows, they have comforters, they have weighted blankets, they have dog beds, they have sheets, they have all kinds of stuff, guys, and everything they make is amazing, and they support what we do 100%. Please go over to mypillow.com and put in your promo code Dad Talk. Hey everybody, welcome to Dad Talk Today. I'm Eric Carroll, and I am with Mr. Kevin Hickey. Kevin, what's going on?
Oh, not a lot. That commercial makes me, relax. Makes me want to take a nap,
Yeah. The My Pillow guys up to 66% off, and it helps the show. If it wasn't for these sponsors, I don't know what we'd be doing. But Kevin, talking about this, guys, we're going to get into the Q&A. It's that Monday again. If you guys got some questions about family law, put them down in the comments, and I will bring them up to Kevin. And nothing about this creates a client-attorney relationship. It's not to be used in court. He's not your lawyer, but he will answer your questions. So if you want to put him down there. I know there was a particular case that's going on in the entertainment world, though, Kevin, that you was wanting to talk about while we're getting some of these questions rolling in.
Yeah, and there's actually one issue I wanted to talk about that came up today in my world with one of my clients. And it's really something that's developed over the last couple of weeks. He has an infant daughter. She's actually about 1.5 years old. And so they have he and the mother of the child have a bag that they send back and forth, and with all the baby's stuff. And he found a device in the bag, and he thought it was a GPS tracking device, but it turned out it was a listening device. And it was hidden down underneath in the bag. So he talked to me about that and what to do. So we've sent him over to the police to talk about it. We know that, mom's the one, or her family put it in there, and they're talking about it, what to do. And the prosecutors are talking about what to do. But, it's a sad day when some stuff like that's happening. This guy is a great father. I represented him. He fought for his daughter and to get his time with her. And he's got tons of time with her, and he's a great dad. And then he's having to deal with this stuff, and he's doing nothing wrong. And that, in my opinion, it's illegal. If you find something like that, whatever state you're in, talk to your attorney first, like we always say. But you may, Eric, that kind of stuff just kind of takes me over the top, and I take it to the police. I mean, it's just so far out of bounds.
Right. I mean, hey, what's your comments on, listening devices? I know in some states you got to have, permission and letting them know, hey, I'm recording you. Is that something that you suggest?
Usually you have to let someone know that you're doing that. I think that in this situation, it's considered stalking the way the Arkansas laws are written. And you can think about it. You're putting a listening device into someone else's home. It's an invasion of privacy. In addition to stalking, it can be considered harassment. I have concerns about it. I really do. And if you have a case and you feel like you want something like that done, I mean, you really need to talk to your lawyer and look at the laws in your state and whether you can really do something like that or not.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, we got a few questions rolling in, guys. If you want to put your questions down in the comments, we'll get to those, and we'll make sure we talk about that topic you was wanting to get to before the end of the show, Kevin.
Yeah, to it.
Mr. Chuck Smith said, why doesn't court uphold the Constitution and immediately put dads on the defense and devour men's funds to traffic kids for profit? I wonder if he meant doesn't or why does.
Yeah, I think he's trying to say parental rights have been violated somehow. I don't really know what's being asked there. There's a lot of stuff there. I can't.
Chuck, rephrase that question. Yeah, rephrase that question. We'll make sure we get it over to Kevin. Stephen Creasy said, Kevin, should I continue on going to mediation or should I work something out with my ex? She don't want to go through court, and she said she don't want the court telling her what she can do or who my kid is around.
Stephen, that's a hard one. I'm a fan of mediation. Mediation works, and these are statistics from across the country. It works 70% of the time or more. You can reach a settlement. There are situations where somebody, and Stephen, you may be in this boat where you have reached agreements. You didn't go to court. You didn't have a judge tell her in so many terms that, look, you've got to follow the order. You've got to do what I'm ordering you to do. You avoid that and go to mediation and come to an agreement, and then you feel like she's kind of taking advantage of that and going right back to the same behavior that there were problems with before. So I'm always a fan of probably won't like this answer, but I'm always a fan of mediation. But I get it. If you've mediated a couple of times before or gotten a couple of settlements put in place with her before, and she just continues to violate it, man, at some point it's time to go in front of the judge and let the judge tell her, look, you can't be acting this way, and put some kind of punishments in place.
Yeah. I mean, I'd back up that sentiment, Kevin. If you could settle that before taking it to the courts and all that other jazz, man, that's the best way to go if mediation ain't working out for you. I mean, we've got the options that we got, unfortunately.
Let me comment on that for a second too, Eric, if you don't mind. On mediation. The big things that I tell clients on mediation, they're like, why do we mediate? And I will go back over these things when we're there. You can get your case finished that day. You will sign an agreement normally before you leave that mediator's office with your ex. The attorneys will then put that into a legal form for the judge to sign, and you're done. The legal fees should stop at that point. You don't have the constant stress every day of worrying about going to court. Nobody likes going to court. You're stressed about having to get up on that witness stand and be questioned by attorneys and the judge looking at you and everything else. That mediation is a great thing that can avoid all of that. So there's a lot of good things about it.
Absolutely. David Tucker said, what about these child monitoring devices on cell phones?
Well, that's a whole other deal. Now you've got a child, and I'm betting it's the child's cell phone that's going back and forth, and you can turn location devices on. And, there can be an issue with that. Lots of parents do that. And, that may be totally legal for you. It's your phone. The other parent knows that phone's sitting there. Most people know that you can turn location devices on either through Snapchat or through Apple or whatever service provider you have, and you can follow where that phone goes. And so to me, that's a little bit of a different situation than hiding something in the bag of the child so that the other parent doesn't see it. And it's a listening device. So you're listening to what's going on in that house. To me, that's just a huge invasion of privacy.
Yeah. We got one from Jermaine Vining. He said, Kevin, I have joint custody with that maternal grandmother of my daughter. Now, Child Support Enforcement Agency is pursuing child support from me. My daughter is 12. She has a debit card that I give her. How can I stop them from coming after me? I know about Title 4D, but I don't know what to do.
If you have joint custody with the grandmother, to me, Jermaine, I'm taking that to mean you've got a court order that says she's a joint custodian. That pretty much puts her on the same level with you as far as parenting rights, and she may be treated as if she's the mom, and so for child support purposes. So that's probably what's happening, is she's taking care of this child. If it's joint custody, it may be half the time. She has stepped in for some reason and is now a joint custodian of this child and may need some child support. I think that if you're providing, you say you've got a debit card you provide to her, if that's extra or in addition or on the side from what the child support is, I would let your attorney know about that. We usually try to present that evidence to show the judge, look, we're helping out, we're providing support. We don't necessarily need a child support order. Now, some judges, are not good with that. They want child support put in place, but talk to your attorney about it and present that evidence. I think is probably the best thing you can do.
Yeah. Adam Mia Fitness and Gaming L said, Kevin, hi. Are most abusers suffering from personality disorder like narcissism?
I don't know if I can say most, but what I will say is when I start seeing, you've got abusers, that's a very broad term that can apply to a lot of things. I start thinking about parental alienation. First of all, this may be physical abuse. I don't know. Certainly if there's that kind of level of abuse going on, there's something going on with that person mentally that they need counseling for, or maybe even more severe psychiatric help with. But whenever I start hearing about a parental alienation case, one of the things, we got a checklist we go through of things to look for, and certainly looking for personality disorders, narcissism, bipolar, borderline personality disorder. I mean, those are the kinds of things we start looking at. That doesn't mean they're always there, but it is certainly a red flag that causes us to look at those things.
Yeah, I don't think it's always parental alienation or narcissism. I think sometimes people get caught up in the family court competition.
Yeah, they do. They get in the competition. They get more mad at the ex than they do about loving their kids and doing the right things by them. And I'm going to try to say this right. We've got a local judge that has a great phrase. She says, "Don't hate your ex more than you love your children." And it's easier said than done a lot of times, especially if you have an ex that is just engaging in all kinds of behaviors that are not good. But yeah, it's something you got to watch out for.
Yeah. Chuck Smith came back in with that question. He said, Kevin, why does court traffic kids for profit and violate parents' constitutional rights to their children? Judge has continued my case for 622 days and had guardian ad litem fired, kids therapist removed, and can't mess with me anymore because they can't violate my rights anymore.
Well, I'm going to answer this as best I can. I think I see what he's talking about. I think he's talking about the DHS or CPS system when there's juvenile cases created. And a lot of times the adoptions that happen out of juvenile courts are not real popular. And a lot of times it seems that or people have the perception that children are being taken out of homes that could have been repaired or away from parents that were working on getting better and we're almost there. And it's sometimes called trafficking, and there is some money involved in that when there's adoptions. And it is a problem. The system's broken. It really is. It needs a complete overhaul. It would be a huge effort to do it all at once, but it is something that needs to be overhauled. As far as the continuance, I hope you've got an attorney, and I don't know why it would be continued for that long. That is a really long time. You need to get a court hearing and get that thing finished.
Yep. Joe Alicia III, he said, Kevin, I got charged with custodial interference for keeping my kids due to fear of their safety on my first descents. My kid's mother, that is not bowel movement. My kid's mother has done it multiple times and they've never charged her or gone after her. Why don't the courts go after mom?
Well, Joe, that kind of goes to the heart of a lot of the issues that we talk about. I think there's been, and this is just research. There's just been a bias, and against men when it comes to these kinds of things. When it comes to domestic violence, domestic abuse, we're starting to get more recognition that males can be abused and be the subject of domestic abuse just as much, or the victims of domestic abuse just as much as women can. And hopefully that perception is changing, but I think you're fighting a lot of history there of bias against men on that issue.
Yeah. Stephen Creasy said, Kevin, is court a bad thing to go through?
Wow, there's 100 different answers to that question. Is it a stressful thing for you to go through? Yes. Is it an expensive thing to go through? Yes. But many times it's a necessary thing you have to go through, and it's not enjoyable. A client may have left the courtroom with me and been very happy with the result, but I've never had them come out and say, boy, that was a lot of fun. I'd really love to do that again. I mean, no one likes it. And so, but sometimes it's a necessary evil that you have to go through. You know, the statistics, though, are, Stephen, I think Stephen's the one that asked about mediation earlier. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Over 90% of cases settle before they get to court, and that includes family law cases. So the horror stories you hear about fall into that 10% or less of cases that actually have to go to a contested hearing. So yeah, court is difficult, but usually there's a pretty heavy percentage chance that you're going to get it settled.
Yeah. Johnny Woodruff Jr. said, Kevin, I record every single pickup of my daughter, every interaction. I use my phone, it's strapped to my hip, and it's helped me in court in Ohio. Is that wrong? I don't know if you can answer, according to Ohio, but what's your general thoughts about that, Kevin?
Well, first of all, yeah, I don't know in Ohio specifically. You'd need to talk to an Ohio attorney about that. However, you're talking about a little different situation than what we were talking about before. Lots of parents, and I have advised my clients at times to record visitation exchanges. If the other parent has been really acting inappropriately, and you need to show that to the court or show that to your lawyer, you're in a public place, usually either out on the street in front of the parent's house or at a public meeting place where you meet. You can do that. And, Ohio may be different, but I don't see anything wrong with that when you're out in a public place and you're recording. Now, I will tell you, you don't want to make it real obvious to where the child is figuring out what's going on. And here's not necessarily because it's illegal, but a lot of family law court judges do not like that. They don't like if one parent is just walking around with a phone or whatever and making it very obvious what they're doing. It just adds stress to every visitation exchange. But if there have been problems at virtually every visitation, or you think the other parent's really going to act in a way that's not appropriate, I always tell people to take at least one witness with you that will just sit, be quiet, won't say a word, but they observe everything. And sometimes you need to record what happens. I think if it's called for, you may need to do that.
Yeah. Mr. Jacob Mateer said, Kevin, with your experience in family law, guardian ad litems, and parental alienation, guardian ad litem believes parental alienation is happening. What do most judges do when parental alienation is happening pertaining to custody?
Well, you've already got one thing, Jacob, very much in your favor, and that's the guardian ad litem is apparently recognizing it. When we have an ad litem in a case, I always tell the client, we're trying to put our case together as much for the ad litem as we are for the judge, because that ad litem is going to make a recommendation to the judge, and most judges most of the time will follow that recommendation. So it's very important that you're giving the ad litem all the information you can so that they can get a really good grasp of what's going on. And if this ad litem is starting to see what you're seeing, which is these signs of parental alienation, that's very helpful. And I would continue to give them information to show that, because then they will probably include that in their recommendation to the judge. As far as what most judges do, again, if that ad litem goes in there and is trumpeting the same thing that your attorney is, that judge is probably going to do something about the alienation.
Yep. And that's a good thing. It's a great thing that your guardian ad litem is saying that, man.
It is, Jacob. That's why I'm saying you're kind of ahead of the game, because usually we're trying to convince the ad litem of what's going on, and you may have already gotten over that hurdle.
Yep, that's definitely a good one to be over. This is a good question, Kevin, and I know you got a lot of this on your website. John Woodruff said, "Where could I find a checklist of parental alienation that I could get my hands on?"
Well,
I know there's several different resources, but the
one that I go to immediately most of the time is right here. I've done it so much, I just kind of think about it. But Eric, if you will remind me, can we put that on the Dad Talk Today page or something? I know Ashish Yoshi has one that's very good. There's several other counselors out there that have some things to look for. If you'll help remind me, maybe we can post that somewhere and put it out there.
Yeah, not a problem. Can you still hear me, Kevin?
Yeah, now you're back. I lost you. I'm gonna
have to say sorry to you guys, man. This happened to me when I was on with Dr. Drew earlier. It is storming in Georgia, so we happen to lose our internet from time to time, but bear with us. We're going to get through this. Kevin, Devon G said, I have joint custody of my daughter, but lives with her mother during the week. I have had issues being able to speak with my daughter on a day-to-day basis without her mother and spouse listening in. And any advice on how to handle that properly, please?
Yes, and Devon, this is not an uncommon problem. Many times the other parent is trying to listen in, or they'll make them put it on speaker or something like that. And that's sometimes a very good solution, is to give your child a phone to take to the other parent's house, and then you can call them directly and make a direct connection with them, and you don't have to worry about it. Then we start running into problems with the phone is at the other parent's house, and if they want to ground that child from the phone, they ground them from the phone you sent over there too. They will make them turn it off as soon as they come in the house. There's all kinds of things that happen. Judges are kind of all over the map what they do with that situation. They want a child to always be able to communicate with the other parent, the parent that they're not with at the time. So a lot of times they'll put rules in place on phones. They'll put times in place each day. Okay, you can have that phone turned off or whatever, but it needs to be on from 7 to 7:30 each night, so dad can talk to his daughter or whatever. But the rules are all over the map. I know it's not a very good answer, but it's just kind of the truth of the way it is. But phones can be problematic when they're going to the other parent's house.
Yeah. Mr. Thomas McCarthy said, family courts are the biggest invades of our privacy. You litigate your marriage, not crimes. It's not the state or anyone's business. How do we do away with Title 4D?
Well, you're talking about a couple of different things there, Thomas, and this first thing I'm going to say you're probably not really going to like, but when you get married, you get a marriage license, and that marriage license is issued by the state where you're getting married. And so from that very first moment of that marriage, you've signed on with the state to legally recognize this union that you have as a marriage. And the only thing that can undo that is a court of the state. So it does seem like an invasion of privacy, but if divorcing parents can't figure out how to work out an arrangement on their own, then it's left to the court to try to figure it out. And that's just the system that we've got.
Yeah. And then, as far as Title 4D, Thomas, it takes stomping the ground, getting out there and educating. You'd be so surprised at how many people don't even know what Title 4D is, including our legislators. They have no idea that it exists. There's some that do, but it takes grassroots getting out there and stomping the grounds, man. I'm not disagreeing with you, but Kevin, you're right too. A lot of us, when we got married, we get ourselves in this mess. I think one of the biggest ways that we can prevent any of this from happening is taking our time and making sure we're choosing the right person, man. And I know that people don't like to hear that. I mean, I got myself into this mess too by jumping. So building strong marriages and happy families. And I'd love to see divorce not happen. So I think getting communication back is really, because the kid needs mom and dad. Unfortunately, divorce happens. Alan Oaf said, Kevin, what is typically the minimum requirements to obtain a restraining order?
I can talk about Arkansas. I think most states are like this. You've got to show fear. You've got to show that you've either been physically harmed and you were afraid for either a serious physical harm or death by this person. They've had to have threatened your life in some way. You've got to show that you're afraid of this person and that they could really cause you harm. And that's usually, you're talking about the minimum requirements. Those are usually the minimum requirements.
Yep. Jermaine Vining said, I have no problem with taking care of my child, but the grandmother is already receiving and depleting her Social Security funds for her benefit. I have a pending appeal to the custody order. Can I go to the child support hearing and have it adjourned to hold them off?
If you're on appeal, it's possible they could hold off on the child support hearing. It's a good argument. A lot of times when things go on appeal, everything is stayed. That means it just sits until the Court of Appeals gets finished with it. So, if I don't know if you're representing yourself pro se, if you do go to court, I'd bring it up to the judge. If that case is on appeal, just say, Judge, this is on appeal, and I'd ask that this be stayed until that appeal's over. Now, the child support may not be part of the appeal, and if it's not, the judge may go forward. And if that's the case, the judge just needs to be made aware of what all income the grandmother is getting as a result of having this child. If she's getting Social Security funds because of having the child, that needs to be brought out.
Yeah. David Tucker said, Kevin, what do we do to stop all this bias? I think he's talking about the bias with men in family court.
Well, it's working. I think it's way better than it was 10 years ago, and it's way better than it was 20 years ago. I think it's a gradual process. It's like trying to turn a ship, and shows like Eric's, and not just plugging his show. I mean, you got to get that word out that dads are parents too, and try to level the playing field. All you can do is keep talking about it.
I think we get stuck inside of our own bubbles and situations sometimes, and we think like, why are they not listening to us? Why are they not doing something? Guys, if they haven't been through it most of the time, nobody knows what we're going through. They might know a family member or something that's been through a divorce. That's why it's important to get out there and spread the awareness. And shows like this definitely does that. I talked to many parents over the past weekend that's never been through it. And, it was good to have these conversations and make them aware of what's going on. We've got to look to the outside and continue getting some, stuff going. So hang in there. It's definitely turning around. It's getting more awareness than it ever has. Stephen Creasy said, Kevin, if I get joint custody, will child support drop? And is mediation like court? Do I get my rights? And would I get other things?
That's the other great thing about mediation, is that you can bring up pretty much whatever you want that's on the table to talk about. I mean, you can craft your own joint custody schedule. You can bring up child support issues. I want to pay this amount of child support as opposed to this amount. You can talk about, like, you talk about your rights. We talked about phones earlier. Can the child have a phone or not? What will the rules be on that? Yes, you can bring up pretty much everything's fair game at a mediation. And that's a great time to put those things in there and come up with an agreement. And get all of the things that you're requesting put into an agreement with your ex and get it done. So, yeah, you can bring up all kinds of issues at mediation.
Yeah. This next one comes from Hakuna Matata. I love it.
That's a great name.
It is amazing. I like that. But let's get this. Hakuna. He said, hey, at Dad Talk Today, how best to keep the momentum going forward when it's the third judge on the case? Parental alienation was mentioned in previous sit-ins, and the other parent was warned. However, court imposed nothing.
Let's see. Third judge on the case. Well, the word mentioned to me means it was brought up, but how much was it really hammered home? You've really got to keep, I use all kinds of phrases, shouting it from the rooftop, shouting it from the mountaintop, whatever. You have to keep hammering it home what the issue and what the problem is when you're talking about parental alienation. Almost all parents at some point do something that might start to fall a little bit on the alienation scale. They have a bad day. They say something about dad that they didn't mean to say or whatever. So that's not going to get the attention of a judge. You've got to show a pattern of behavior, and you've got to show it keeps happening, and you got to show how it's harming the children. You got to show how it's harming your relationship with the children. And you just got to keep on it and keep on it. That's the best way to get the judge to take notice.
Yeah. Mr. Winford on YouTube said, is it possible to sue a lawyer or report them to the bar? Every comms I receive from my soon-to-be ex-lawyer are all lies and continued false allegations. My lawyer always asks for proof to make sure of facts.
Well, every state has a professional conduct committee. It's probably called something different in every state. And that's, if you go online and just Google in your state how to file a report, you can do that. You can certainly do that. I will tell you, I'm just looking at the last sentence. I asked for proof of a lot of things too. And I tell my clients, it's not that I don't doubt you. It's just that what actually happened and what we can prove in court are two very different things. So when you tell me something that's very important that I want to use, my immediate thought is how can I get that into evidence? Because it's not always admissible. One of the biggest things we come across and some of the best evidence that we cannot use comes from children. My son came home and he's 6 years old. Let me tell you what he told me. Well, are we going to put that son on the stand? No, I don't want my son any part of this or whatever. I just want to talk about what he told me. Well, you can't do that. That's hearsay. And children all the time are telling their parents one thing or another that parents will come to me and say they want to use. And we have this problem repeatedly. You're going to either have to put that child on the stand or get an ad litem involved that can talk to the child that might figure out a way to get that evidence in. But, just because I'm not saying what happened was all kosher and good with your attorney, Winford, but I always ask my clients for proof of things too, because I know when we go to court, I don't want to be stuck there with evidence I want to introduce and I can't get it into evidence because it's not admissible. So.
Yep. We got one from us, and we actually talked about this, I think, last time, Kevin. I want to get a little bit of a discussion about this. He said, Kevin, my son's mother calls every single day I have my son. The judge actually told her to not expect a call every time since I don't get him often. When it's practicable, as the judge puts it, she insists on calling every time still, even when judge told her to cut it out. She's taken me back to court for this situation. Can I ask for the order to be modified stating when it's practical? I will initiate the call. This is her way of control, and I'm sick of it. Very common. What's your thoughts on that, Kevin? I'm going to pull this down. If you need me to pull it back up, I will.
Yeah, that's fine. No, it is very common. And I don't know if I'd use the practical word. I think you're to the point that you've got to pick a specific time that mom's going to call, because judges will normally start off with that. Mom can call when it's reasonable. Mom can call when it's practical or whatever. But some parents abuse the situation. And when the child is with you, they want to call repeatedly, or they'll call one time and try to keep them on the phone for an hour and a half. They're trying to dominate your visitation time. And that's not what your visitation time is for. Your visitation time is for the child to spend time with you, not be on the phone nonstop with mom.
That's right.
If they want to talk to mom each night before they go to bed or when they get up for a few minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and just talk, there's no problem with that, but it can get excessive. So my advice is I would avoid the word practical, because I think it's too vague at this point. I think you need to pick, each day she can call at 7:30 and they can talk for 15 minutes. And that way everybody knows what's going on and she can't abuse it.
So somebody was asking about the parental alienation checklist, and we see this often, Kevin. I think this is one of the tools that parental alienation starts to happen. calling you every few minutes, or calling the child every few minutes. Are you okay? Is everything okay? I wanted to check up on you. And then it gives the kid the notion like, well, is there something I'm supposed to be worried about? What's going on? Is dad not taking care of me? Did dad do something wrong? And they put this crap inside of their kid's head. And it's one of the ways they do it kind of indirectly. But it definitely gets that going.
Some parents are masters at it. Just like, let me give you an example right now. Hey, Eric, you doing okay today? I mean, that's very straightforward, whatever. But I'll say, Eric, are you okay? You doing okay?
Are you sure?
Are you sure? I mean, that's even a child picks up on that tone and what's going on.
You can talk to me, baby. It's okay.
That's right. That's right. What's dad doing? I mean, it's diabolical sometimes. It really is.
It's disgusting. It's manipulation. And it's child abuse. And then they're planting these little seeds inside the kid's head. And if that was going on, definitely bring it up to your attorney and make sure he brings it up to the judge, because that's a part of the playbook. As somebody asked, here's one of them.
It is.
Francisco Martinez said, Kevin, I feel like this is kind of weird compared to most, but I'm a new dad and my baby girl was born 2 weeks ago. And I asked the mother if I can be put on the birth certificate, and she has not let me know if she wants to. And I would like to set up child support. And I gave her a VDOP to sign, and I asked to think about it. And before she signs, but it seems she doesn't want to, or she doesn't want anything. Good question. And I got somebody you really need to hear from. But what's your thoughts on that, Kevin?
Yeah, you, Francisco, if you're wanting to be an involved dad, and it sure sounds like you are, then you have every right to be on the birth certificate. You'll have to file a paternity action. It may be called something different in the state where you are, but go and talk to an attorney, a family law attorney. They'll know exactly what you need to do, and they'll file that action for you, and that will get you legally on the birth certificate. It'll get you a visitation or custody schedule. Child support will be set up, but basically it'll get you your rights. So that's what you need.
Have you ever heard of Christopher Emanuel's case out of South Carolina, Kevin? So he was a father. The mother was doing this same thing right here. So he went and signed up on the Responsible Fatherhood Registry. And until this came out, I didn't even know there was such a thing. And so she ended up adopting the child and like put it in the adoption industry. Well, because he had signed up on that fatherhood registry, he won custody back of his child, which is very rare.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something, I think that's a tool. And if you'll look him up, there's several different articles on that. The Responsible Fatherhood Registry. If she's not letting you get on, you go ahead and put yourself on that. That way, if anything was to arise, you can be like, hey, I tried. She didn't let me.
Well, let's just talk about this for a second. In Arkansas, it's called the Putative Father Registry. So, and the exact situation we're talking about, guys, is if you have been dating someone or had sexual relations with someone and you think she has become pregnant with your child and now she's ghosted you, she's gone, whatever, every state has a registry of some kind for fathers that are wondering if a child's been born that may be their child. Go sign up on that registry. You'll need to put the mom's name on there, and usually they'll ask the county she was living in or whatever, because before we can adopt a child, having a child adopted, attorneys have to check that registry and make sure no one's name is on there associated with that mom before it happens. So that's where it can protect you. So be sure you sign up. And most 99.9% of guys have no clue what that is, don't know what it is. So if you're in that situation, go sign up on that list.
Absolutely. I had no idea that it exists.
Yeah, so. No one does. No one does.
Yep. Brianna Harper said, Kevin, can you opt out of child support? The other parent may owe in the 50-50 agreement, and I do not want it. Or can we agree to pay outside of the child support system? That could be a dangerous thing.
It is. The answer is yes and yes. Going to the second part, sometimes there's a good reason for paying outside of the child support system. If I have a client that's paying, I usually want them to pay in the system so they'll be in there, because it'll avoid snafus down the road. If you're paying the other parent directly and the child support system shows you're thousands of dollars behind later, you're having to get receipts, and some people pay by money order, canceled checks. You're having to prove what you paid. If you pay into the system every month, it's keeping track of what you have, so you have a record. But Yes, you can opt out of child support. Judges go back and forth on whether they want it required or not. But in Arkansas, usually if we put language in there that the parents are going to split the expenses because they're spending about 50, the children are spending about 50-50 time with each one. Most judges are okay with that. So yeah, you can opt out, agree out of that.
Yeah. Dave Murray said, I know judges have a very high immunity, and I've talked to a couple of lawyers who said if they sued a judge, they could lose their license to practice. That being said, is there an actual rule for lawyers that if they try to sue a judge, they lose their job?
Well, Dave, it doesn't say that, but what they're talking about is Rule 11. That's what it is in most states. And that's the rule for sanctions against attorneys. Anytime that I file a lawsuit, and that includes a divorce, change of custody, or whatever, that means I have done a minimal investigation of looking into what my client's telling me the allegations are. Have I looked at the law to see if they have enough of a case to file? My cat Phoebe really wants to be part of this.
That's a cool cat, man.
I have custody of her. But you've heard about frivolous lawsuits. Frivolous lawsuits are the Rule 11. That means that there was not a basis in law or in fact file it. So before you go after, coming back to your question, before you go after a judge, you've really got to have a lot of, it's a losing proposition, guys. It's 1 in a million at best. A judge really has to go off the rails before you can have any kind of a case against them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think the lawyers are telling you is, look, I file that, it's frivolous, and I'm not just suing anybody. I'm suing a judge that knows how to go straight to the professional conduct committee and get me in huge trouble. So that's what you're running up against.
Yep. Just a general comment right here, not a question, but Stephen Creasy said, thank y'all for the info. This is a great thing for all these dads. And like you said the other day, you didn't have anything to look up, no support group. I'm sure we all appreciate everything that y'all are doing to help us. And thanks to the guests you have on your show. Hey, thank you. You know, Kevin, when we started Dad Talk, there was nothing like this out there. And people talk about like the corrupt attorneys and the ones that just want to go. I don't know many attorneys coming on here spending their time answering questions for everybody. And a lot of people's like, man, don't use attorneys, just go pro se. I'll be the first one to admit, when I start looking into that book, that is a lot of I don't get it. I don't get it. Yeah. So to have resources like this and friends like you to come on here and share, you know, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. That makes my day when someone's appreciative of what we're doing, man. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. That's why we do it. So we got a 4-parter right here from Mr. Maddox Lee on YouTube. He said, part 1, my baby's mom and I have an order over a little over a week, and she's already taken away one of my periods of visitation. Part 2, she's refusing to give my child's insurance information, which is a part of the Arkansas standard order. Uh-oh, Kevin, it's in Arkansas. Part 3, and when I asked for my child's social security number, which is also a part of the order that she must provide it to me, she stopped responding. Part 4, can I file contempt? What can I expect to happen in court?
Let's start with part 4. Yes. If that's in your order and that's not being provided, then yes, you can file for contempt. Normally, like if you come to me and we get on the case, sometimes we will send a letter to her first to try to say, look, these things are in the order. We don't want to have to go to court. If you'll start complying, then that'll be the end of it. But sometimes the parent has already tried that and has gotten nowhere. And so you're left with filing something with the court. So yeah, those are things that are contempt and that can definitely be filed for. What can you expect to happen in court? We talk on here a fair amount about contempt. The judge has all kinds of authority to do all kinds of things to a parent that they feel like is violating their order. They can just slap them on the wrist and tell them to start complying and don't act that way anymore, all the way up to putting them in jail. Now, that's pretty extreme and doesn't happen very often, but the judge has all kinds of different things they can do.
Guys, I see your questions. Michael Leventhal said, is it just me or anyone else's stream cutting in and out? Hey, man, sorry about that. Again, I got a storm down here in Georgia. This country internet is completely whack, but it's what I got, and that's what we're operating off of. But I know, Kevin, we're going to get to these questions, but I know there was something that you was wanting to bring up, Kevin, before I forget about it, with the Girardi case.
Oh yeah, this is something. If you watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, it's pretty popular right now. Tom Girardi, who's an attorney out in California, and his wife Erica Jane are going through a very, very high-profile divorce, and there's a lot of facets to it. But one of the biggest things is Tom Girardi is one of these personal injury attorneys that has had huge, multi-million-dollar cases and settlements. And these attorneys that do these cases, we all have trust funds where we put client funds in, and then we'll use those funds either for litigation or to pay out as part of a settlement. Well, Tom allegedly had all this money in his trust account and has been using that to live on all these years, and now it's kind of all crumbled. The money's apparently all gone. He did not pay his clients the settlement funds, which is pretty much one of the biggest no-nos you can do as an attorney. And now this divorce is going on with his wife, and there's all kinds of questions surrounding, did she know? Did she have knowledge of what he was doing? And you know, her attorneys recently quit on her. She's been going, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills show is going on weekly right now, and she's talking about this case weekly, making all these comments about him. And I don't know if that's why her attorneys quit. I can speculate that might be part of it. I would not want my client out there trashing the other side in the press. That can really backfire on you. Judges don't like it. I don't know if that's part of the reason or not, but going public with your case, even when you don't have a real high profile case, going on Facebook or whatever else, talking about all these things, I always tell clients not to do that. It's for one thing, you're creating evidence for the other side to use against you. And it's just never really a good idea. Now, back in March, a little more background on this, Tom Girardi, he's in his 80s. He's been a legal legend in California forever. He did get his license taken away. And now it's apparent that his brother has gotten a conservatorship over him, which is like a guardianship. Basically saying that he's got this, I think they call it a neurocognitive disorder. He's probably some type of dementia or early dementia. He can't handle his own affairs. So his brother's basically going to come in and kind of take care of his affairs for him and make sure he's doing okay on a day-to-day basis. And those are called different things in different states. In California, it's called a conservatorship.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, you know, stressful, and with those celebrities, because they got all this media, they got this anger and all that stuff been up. I'm just gonna go tell everything on it. We've had a few of those guys on here that's got some of those high-profile cases, but social media is not your place to vent. I mean, we got some support groups and stuff, guys. Get in there. We kept it closed for a reason, and every time you post and you think I've got her blocked, she's not seeing it. She's seeing it.
She's got a friend, she's got a relative, she's got Aunt Mary over in South Carolina. Somebody is going to get on there and see it. And you can do your best to keep it from coming out, but it always seems to. And the last place you want to see it is up on the screen when you're in court. One final thing, and for people to keep in mind when you go through a divorce, you know, divorce is not a money for the people involved. It is not a money-making thing. And some people are like, I want everything plus the kitchen sink. It's not going to work out that way. Final thing on the Girardi divorce, they have a house that's valued at over $13 million, and there's no money left in his trust account. I mean, they're probably essentially broke after being multi-millionaires. This house was listed for $13 million and is now down to $9 million. They just lowered it today or yesterday. You're in a situation of it's like closing a business. You're liquidating assets, and clients get mad about that, and it's worth more than this. We're trying to get a divorce finished here, and it doesn't always work out best. You're not ever going to get top dollar for things. It's dividing assets and getting the case finished, and that's part of the process they're going through now.
Parents could realize all this money. Yeah, they're about to have to sell their house. This guy's cleaned out his account. If you just come together and you guys, work it out on your own, you could keep all that and it could go to your kids. Unfortunately, I guess the emotions and everything get tied up and it goes back to the family court. And it seems like in many cases, Kevin, they just completely bleed them until it's dry.
I have conversations at least on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis, with clients where I say these exact words. Yes, we can try to push for that and see if the judge will give you that at the hearing. But you need to think about how much in attorney's fees and work it's going to take. And I'll work. If you want me to do it, I have no problem working. Think about how much you're going to pay me to go after that asset. And is it really worth it, risking what the judge might do versus what they've offered in a settlement? Is it exactly what you want? No, but it may be way more than you would get if we go to the judge and the judge rules against you.
Yeah.
You have to weigh those things constantly throughout the case.
Yeah, I get it. Hakuna Matata said something again, Kevin. He said, Dad Talk Today, has there been any updates in reference to John Mast case?
I have not heard any updates. Again, they're looking at a trial next year for Mr. Bashir, and that's all I can really share at this point.
Yep, guys, I promise you, when those updates come out, we will get them to you as we can release them. I do want
to say something though. Seeing the candle there makes me think about it, and that's really awesome. You put that on there.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it, Eric. Eric and I, and this was a huge honor for me, and I know it was for Eric too. Were asked by the Mast family to be on the John Mast Foundation board of directors, and it's something that we weekly are involved in, and I am so proud of it. It's going to be a foundation, and you're going to start to hear more about it in the future, that helps victims of parental alienation. We're going to provide resources and references and connections, hopefully, to attorneys and experts. That's the plan as we get this going, but that's going to be a great resource and a great thing for years to come, and something that I'm just really proud to be part of.
I can assure you guys that the Mast family, alongside me and, Kevin, nobody wants to see justice more than us guys. And
that's right.
It takes a little bit of time. I wish we could get an overnight solution, but at this point, there's nothing we can do that's going to bring John back. All we can do is make sure we take our time and execute it properly, that every bit of justice we can get actually comes to the table. So hang in there. I'm going to try to have the documentary. Robert Garza is mixing that down now. It should be out around August 31st. Just be mindful. Some of these files, just like a 2-3 minute file, were like 10 gigabytes because we shot it in 4K. If I knew then what I know now, we probably would have got it a little bit sooner, but we're not documentary makers. But we're doing this one in honor of John. So I'm going to try to get that out as soon as possible. And we've got the information coming out on the John Mast Foundation. That is going to be a huge resource for you guys.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
The Mast family is really putting their all into this. So bear with us. I just want to ask you about this, Kevin. John Woodruff Jr. said, thank you. I never heard about that registration, talking about the fatherhood registry. Yeah. Is there any other thing? Because that's something that you really never hear anybody talk about. Is there any other things, any other resources like this that kind of stay hidden that most people don't know about?
You mean like on the registration there?
Yeah, like a registration or something like this, like a resource that could help these guys that many people don't know about.
That's the biggest thing. And then you need to talk to an attorney. Even if you just say, hey, I need 30 minutes of your time, I'll pay you for that. I just need to sit down and ask you some questions about the paternity process. That's the biggest thing that fathers need to do. And when they come into me, they don't know what they're doing. They just say, I need to talk to a lawyer. I just know people have told me I need to go talk to a lawyer about it. What do I do? They just know they want to be the father of that child and be involved in their life. And get to an attorney. They'll know exactly what you need to do. How to find mom. If she's taken off, we'll find her and we'll get her served and we'll get you your rights. And but that's the biggest step you can take is that.
Yeah. Angel Luis Mendez Jr. said, Kevin, I have court August 31st for contempt. I kept my son from his mother once he told me he was staying home doing school while the boyfriend sleeps. Son said he was to wake him up at lunch. My boy is 7. She filed for contempt because of this. Went in front of the master. She stated such, and I admitted what I did. Then she said, I'm lying. She takes him to work with her, which isn't a better environment for son to be in school. What's your take on it?
So the magistrate looks like he says that Angel was lying. He takes him to work with her. Oh, okay. So yeah, I said that the mom said he was lying. You've got a child that's 7 years old. I don't know. I don't know what to say on that. And that kind of goes back to what I'm talking about before. Children will come and tell you something, and then it's a matter of what you're able to prove in court. And sometimes things can fall apart in court, or the child won't say exactly the same thing in court, or the judge just judges credibility of the mom and dad and decides something. So it's hard for me to say what happened there.
Yep. Where we at? Okay. Ajit, my buddy, we will be in the Silicon Valley, San Jose next month, August 14th, alongside my buddy Ajit. We are doing a fatherless conference. It'll be me, Melissa Isaac, Jeff Morgan, and Robert Garza. We please ask that you show up. We've been invited. I'm going to be a keynote speaker there to put some awareness on the issues. But he's got a question for you, Kevin. He said, can you describe breach of fiduciary duty? Would it include not giving stock options, selling advice when it approaches the expiration date, especially when they have all of the docs that tell them the expiration date? I'm a vice president of the company, and any advice can lead to an SEC violation.
Okay, that's a little different one. But yeah, fiduciary duty is when you have been put into some kind of a capacity. It can be as part of a corporation. It can be as part of a trust, where you are taking on the duty of taking care of a piece of property or someone else and making sure that that is handled appropriately. You have a fiduciary duty. It's more than just something very minor. It is that you have been given either money or property to watch over, and you have what's called a fiduciary duty to take care of it. It's a higher duty in the law that you have to follow. Usually trustees have that duty. That's where you'll hear it most of the time. As far as the rest of it, it's kind of hard to say what would really happen with that. But if you are misappropriating funds, you are not making sure that money is put into either safe investments or investments that are drawing interest. If you are not making sure that property, you're keeping it from being damaged, having it protected and keeping it from being stolen, you're not inventorying it properly. There are a lot of things that fall under that, but it's the phrase I use is the buck stops with you if you're the fiduciary. So if that person that you're talking about is not doing those things, they may be violating their fiduciary duty.
So you can tell we're on live video. Not only the storm, but my mouse just died. So I got it plugged up. I'm going to try to get it question by question and plug in between. So if it looks funny, guys, you know what's going on.
This is like a test for you tonight, Eric. What can go wrong, and can you get through it?
Yeah. All right. It worked. Peter Ibby said, I have only seen my son 5 times the past 4 years because of being incarcerated. I'm asking for access to see my son 1 week for 2 hours and then the following week for 1 hour supervised until my son gets more comfortable with myself. Is this something sensible to ask for? My son is 11, and so far, all our visits have been fantastic.
Absolutely, Peter. I think that's a very good schedule that you've got. I think it's very reasonable. When you haven't been around the child in that long of time, it's very hard to keep in mind, and hopefully your attorney can, and it sounds like you've got a good grasp of it. The judge is going to look at what's in the best interest of the child, and we're the adults in this situation, and so we know when there's been distance, we can kind of reconnect. But for a child, it's very different if that bond is not there. And you've seen them 4 times in 5 years, there's not going to be much of a bond during that time. So it's important to slowly, what we call step up the visitation. Start off with a little bit of time, a little bit more, then increase to an overnight, and more and more and more. So no, I think that schedule you just put up there is very reasonable and very good idea.
Peter, I'd like to say, a lot of times these guys got supervised visitation that don't need it. I think the fact that you said I made a mistake and you're wanting to step up a little bit of a time, I think that shows character, and I think it would in the courtroom.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so keep doing what you're doing, buddy. I mean, everybody can change, brother. Let me see if I can get this mouse to work. All right. Maddox Lee said, can I request changes to the order in filing for contempt, like the meeting location being moved closer to me as I showed up and she didn't, granting me full custody, etc.?
You need to file. Can you request changes? Yes, but it depends on how close you are to the hearing. That stuff that you're asking for is not so much contempt. Those are modifying the visitation, custody arrangement, location of meeting, that kind of thing. You're going to need to file for those things. If you just have contempt saying she violated an order or something, and you go to court and then try to ask for those things, the judge probably isn't going to hear it, because it's going to say you didn't plead that. You didn't put the other side on notice that you wanted those things. So hopefully it's far enough ahead of court that you're not going to run into timing problems. But if you're wanting those things addressed, you need to make sure you've filed for those things.
Yeah. Let's see. Joe Muir said, my ex has custody of our daughter. I paid her directly for years and got stuck with thousands of dollars in arrears after the divorce. I now pay $546 a month through the system with arrears included. We have both agreed to have everything changed to 50-50. What's the best way to file and have things change with payments going through the system? Ooh, never pay him directly.
Yeah,
and if you do, make sure it's a check.
This is the issue we were talking about earlier, because then it's hard to prove what you paid. Sometimes they won't take it. Some judges will just say that was a gift if it didn't go through the child support system and it was supposed to. So anyway, that's kind of water under the bridge for him at this point. I think what I was seeing was that you've now changed your visitation or your custody to 50-50, to where you've got equal time or close to equal time. What I would do is modify the child support amount to whatever it should be, with each of you having 50-50 time, which should be less than what you're paying. And I would suggest to you, it's your money, not mine, but maybe keep paying the same amount you're paying now, and that way you're paying more towards the arrearage to get it to go away. But that's one option. Certainly, if the time has changed to almost 50-50, you need to modify the child support.
Yeah. AJ said, I stand with John. I love seeing that hashtag up there. Let's keep his memory alive. Hakuna Matata said, 2 excellent resources on the web, Dad Talk Today and DSD. Both are lifesavers. Kevin and Melissa are always on the ball, and excellent work, Eric, as always. You're making big waves listening in. Hey, thank you. Got 2 last questions for you here, Kevin. John Woodger said, lastly, what's the name of the registration for fathers? I'm sure that we all need to hear it again. Thank you, Mast family, for being a part of this movement. I'm so sorry for your loss. So I know you was calling it the Punitive Father Registry in Arkansas, correct?
In Arkansas, it's Punitive Father Registry. And if you are in Arkansas, that's PUTATIVE. If you're you can probably put putative father in a Google search and then whatever state you're in, and I bet it will pull up the list. Put paternity father list, possible father list, and I think that's going to come up in whatever state you're in.
Yep. All right. And then last question here. Michael Leventhal said, what about the Jack in the Box scenario? Meaning, if I have a child that I was unaware of and the child is now an adult, can she sue me for 18 years of back child support?
That is an excellent question.
Yeah, it is.
Most courts, I don't think, will go back that far. There's also a statute of limitations on that. I think most states say within 2 or 3 years of their turning 18, they can go back and try to get some. But once it's beyond that time, I think it's gone forever. But that's something that varies judge by judge and state by state how far they can go back. So
I've seen it happen.
Yeah,
I've seen it happen.
It absolutely can.
But because the dad knew and was trying to dodge it.
That's true. And that can make a difference if they know there's a child there and they're just avoiding.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Amazing conversation going on. I enjoyed all the questions. We'll be doing this again in another 2 weeks. Kevin, if anybody would like your services or would like to talk to you, where can they reach out to you, brother?
the most resources we have, and the easiest is to go to our website, www.kevinhickeylaw.com. We have a ton of parental alienation, divorce, family law information on that site. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, Facebook. You can also call us for appointments, 479-434-2414. Our offices are in Western Arkansas. We have one in Fort Smith and then one in Northwest Arkansas. But we take high conflict custody cases anywhere in the country. So wherever you are in the United States, if you have a high conflict custody case with severe parental alienation, false abuse allegations, anything like that, we come in, we work alongside your local attorney. A lot of people say, how can you do that when you're not licensed in that state? Well, we go through a process where we're admitted to practice legally for your case, and that's how we can work alongside your local attorney and help you with those kinds of cases. I think I lost you.
I had to mute my mic. Sorry. I just realized. Uh-oh. All right. So can you hear me now, Kevin?
Now I got you.
I just got a big bolt of lightning and the bottom fell out, and I still got to go home. So I'm about to get completely drenched. But with that said, hey, man, thank you so much for your exhaustive work and getting out here and answering these questions for these guys. I really do appreciate it. We'll do it again in 2 weeks.
Same to you, man. See you.